A period of much cooler weather is now setting in across a lot of the United States, and it is here to stay for quite a while as the jet stream is making a dive towards the southeast US as we go even into next week. This video has all the details on that extended cooldown, plus you could see snow as a result. I'll even give you a look longer range towards the end of next week.
One Nation weather.
As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune into this video. I hope everybody has had a great Thanksgiving holiday. It is the end of our Thanksgiving as I film this video, and I just want to thank every single one of you who has subscribed to this channel and got me to that 6,000 subscriber mark right before Thanksgiving. I'm so grateful for every single one of you who follows this channel and wants more of those consistent, accurate, and educational updates as I continue to post them. And in this case, let's go ahead and get right into the overview for the pattern ahead, using the mid-level pattern looking up into the atmosphere with the European model. Blues indicate troughs, areas of cooler air. Oranges and reds, as always, indicate those areas where we've got ridging in the atmosphere, and that is where we're going to have warmer air in general down towards the surface. And in this case, as we go to the end of this week, here's that trough that pretty much every single weather YouTuber has been talking about. This is what brought that quick Thanksgiving winter storm that especially brought some overachieving snow totals into parts of the interior northeast. At this point in time now, we are just watching a big dip in the jet stream as we close out this week going into our Black Friday as well as the entire weekend. The reason I show you this mid-level pattern, as I always say, what happens in the atmosphere dictates the surface pattern, and in this case, when you've got all this low pressure, all this troughing going on in the eastern US, you're essentially seeing whatever's up in Canada, which is very cool air, making its way down towards the eastern and central US. As a result of that, temperatures going 10, 15, 20 degrees at least below average for this time of the year, and that will not just be a Friday and Saturday type of thing. Here we go by the time we get into our Sunday, December 1st, kicking off a new month, looking for some new changes. Normally we see cool downs, especially this time of year, really just make their way through, then we can warm back up and then move on to the next cool down. This is more of an extended cool down. You can see that troughing continuing, especially east of the Mississippi River, the most anomalous troughing there, well below average temperatures through the entire eastern US, while the west stays warm with a ridging pattern there as we close out this weekend. That ridge is really going to make a fight by the time we make our way through the middle part of next week. I think the milder conditions out west will make their way towards the eastern US by the middle to the back half of next week, but they could get interrupted once again by another cool down. I'll discuss that potential again later in the video, but let's go ahead and talk about some of these near-term temperatures as we are seeing a big cool down really from the west to the east coast in the near term, and the east will continue with that even as we go into the early part of next week as I just showed you. Let's start here as we go into our Black Friday in the morning hours. This is our Friday, November 29th, not even factoring in whatever wind chills we're going to have as a result of the wind gusts that we could see in some of these regions. Overall, anywhere from Utah, parts of the Rockies there in Colorado, up through Wyoming and Montana, and then into the Dakotas, Minnesota, surrounding states like Nebraska, Iowa, you name it. All these states that I just listed off looking at widespread single digits, maybe some teens. In some cases, as you go on up there closer to that Canadian border, we'll see some spots that are actually in the single digits and teens, but on the other side of zero in those negatives, -5, -10, certainly not out of the question there, especially in the entirety of the state of North Dakota, only warming up to 5 to 10 degrees above zero in that part of the state as we go into our Friday afternoon. You can see the wind flow really bringing those colder temperatures all the way to the southeast towards parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes. While this region is certainly not anticipating as cold of temperatures as the North Central Plains, the anomalies are very similar, 10, 15, 20 degrees below average for this time of the year. Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, right around or just below freezing for a peak temperature on our Friday afternoon with, in many cases, some sunshine, but of course we could see some clouds coming off the lakes with some of that lake effect snow that'll actually break down in more detail a little bit later. Here we go overnight Friday night and into our Saturday, November 30th. In the morning Saturday, just another cold one. The Rockies, the North Central Plains, lots of teens, single digits, and even some of those negative numbers. Teens even over towards the Ohio Valley in the morning, and then once again only warming up into the 20s and 30s in a lot of these areas. I do want to circle this area from parts of the Ohio Valley back towards the mid-Mississippi Valley and then back over into the mid-Atlantic. This zone, these numbers don't look that cold, especially when we've got 20s and 30s to the north of it. But overall, these 30s and 40s for highs, maybe the low 50s, most of these spots are running at least 5, 10, 15 degrees below average for this time of the year. So it's all good to think of things in a relative sense as well, because these are still cold temperatures in comparison to normal. As we start off December, as I mentioned, we're not going to see much change. The cold continuing out of the North Central Plains and over into the eastern U.S. Spots, especially north of that line I just drew, really feeling the wrath of those teen temperatures. That will include northern Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, even into some parts of Ohio, especially with higher elevations there in the northern Appalachians and the interior Northeast, but still a hard freeze for a lot of the coastal cities there in the Northeast U.S., plenty of 20s in Michigan, and then, of course, back towards the northwest of all those zones. We've still got negative numbers ongoing into the Dakotas and Minnesota. Canada. The cool down continues even into our Sunday afternoon. I'm not going to focus on one specific area, but you can see a lot more 20s, a lot more 30s across the board for millions of Americans from the upper Midwest over to the Northeast. And then the last day I want to focus on here is Monday, where we continue with the cold. Let's circle this region here, the Midwest, the mid-Mississippi Valley over into the Ohio Valley. Yet another morning with some of those cold temperatures. And you see those boxes there in Kentucky and eastern Tennessee into western North Carolina. Those actually indicate record lows down there around 15 to 18 degrees through that entire region of the southern and central Appalachians. Very cold for this time of the year. And while this entire cool down is not necessarily record breaking in a lot of spots, those are some of the areas where we actually will break some of those record lows and even have some record cold highs. You can see that continuing into our Monday afternoon. But while we've got some 30s up here in the north central plains, we're recovering into the 40s and 50s in Kansas, Oklahoma recovering from whatever cooldown may have happened over the weekend. Monday afternoon looks like a day where we're going to see a shift to more of a south to north flow as ridging begins exiting and making its way not just out of the southwest U.S., but also back towards the plains. This could result in some areas, especially the further south you go, warming up as we go through next week. But in general, I think we are going to see the colder pattern locked in, especially with some reinforcements by the end of next week. Let's go ahead and break that down here using the European model while also looking for some of those snow chances that could take advantage of all the cold air that we are going to have. First of all here, I'll break this down in more detail at the very end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But it does look like we are going to be seeing this near-term lake effect snow, and it's really not just a near-term thing. It's going to last all the way through our Saturday, our Sunday, even into our Monday and Tuesday of next week. With northwest to southeast flow as a result of our troughing, we're going to have a low pressure system sitting in southeast Canada that you can see as I zoom back out there. It's going to be on the northeast side of that picture on your screen. All of that flow, the usual trouble spots from northwest to southeast, those east sides of all of our Great Lakes, looking at a decent chance of some hefty snowfall accumulations even lasting through the weekend. While the lake effect snow is the main area that's going to be seeing snow in the coming days, there has been a lot of hype about snowstorms, or at least there's been some thumbnails indicating that we'll see snowstorms, even though they might not happen. I've been part of that party before, I'm not going to fail to admit that, but in terms of this event, I don't really see any need for hype. As we go into this upcoming weekend, we do have a possibility for some snow as we move into parts of Missouri, Illinois, southwest Indiana, as well as western Kentucky. That is as we go through our Saturday afternoon, that quick little band of possible snow. While there's lake effect going on to the north, that could push into parts of eastern Kentucky, southern Ohio, as well as parts of the state of West Virginia while banking up against the Appalachians and then fizzling out Sunday going into our Monday. But what I want to point out here, you see all these H's. There's one up there in Minnesota, there's one in Arkansas, there's one in Pennsylvania during the early part of the week. Colder air this time of the year often involves high pressure, and high pressure normally means drier air. That's why in a big cool down that's especially coming in with cool, dry Canadian air this time of the year, I wouldn't really put money on any sort of big snowstorms. But when we could certainly get some energy to make its way through some part of the eastern U.S. is as we go towards the middle to the back half of next week. This is not a specific time frame that I want you to focus on. Don't focus on that Wednesday, December 4th. Just focus on the general time frame. At some point mid to late next week, I think we're going to have warm air starting to make its way back towards the eastern U.S., but just as it does so, some sort of system is going to have to bring that cold air back. I'll prove that to you in just a moment, but what you can see on your screen there is that that could involve some snow maybe in the Great Lakes or Ohio Valley or a surrounding region. Stay tuned for more info on that. I'll keep you updated on what could happen out of that, but for now, let's go ahead and talk about that near-term snow stripe that we are going to have pushing from Missouri all the way here into the central Appalachians. I'll break down that lake effect, as I've been saying, at the very end of the video, but here we go looking at that specific region that's going to get our quick snow this weekend. Going out of Saturday into our Sunday, it's not a lot, but the European Ensemble members are averaging out to show a collective total of around 1 to 3 inches. Anywhere here out of east central Missouri, south central Illinois, far southern Indiana, and then through parts of Kentucky, Ohio, and into West Virginia. This could be some of that decent snowfall. This doesn't look like a wet snowfall. It could be a little bit more powdery, as it is going to be a very cold environment all through levels of the atmosphere here. So it could be a decent quick accumulation, but eventually it will melt off, especially with those sunny days in the afternoons that could come into next week. And then by the time we go through the end of next week, overall you can see on these ensembles probably a typical looking shift of some increasing snowfall up here through the upper Midwest and northern Great Lakes. But again, most of our snowfall in the coming days is going to be in that Great Lakes region as a result of lake effect, and there are no huge snow signals that deserve any major attention at this point in time. But I will keep you updated, of course. Make sure you're subscribed, turning on those notifications so you catch all the updates on when snow could come your way. But here we go, taking a look through next week. All the way through the early to mid part of next week, we've got that cooler air 5, 10, 15 degrees below average locked into most, if not all, of the eastern U.S., but we begin to see it change. It's dry, warm, coming from the southwest U.S. and then pushing outward day by day from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. Warmer than average air expanding from the southwest U.S. outward. So California, Arizona, some of the states that will start with this warmer than average air first, but then eventually by Thursday it's as far north as Montana, as far northeast here in the plains as Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and then as far east in the southern U.S. as Mississippi and Alabama. So just focus on that general time frame. Some point mid to late next week we begin warming back up, but then out of Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday and Saturday, look at these European ensemble members. Considering we are several days out from this, this is another big indication of a ridge out west and then a trough digging down into the east with a positive Pacific North American oscillation. That's a climate pattern that I talked about in the last video. That tends to mean ridging out west, troughing in the east. That's an indication that we are probably going to have this big dig come down, and the Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast U.S. could especially be affected some point late next week into the upcoming weekend there. Again, this is 7 to 10 days out, so there's plenty of time for changes, especially with the storm that could bring that in. But that would be the biggest signal that I'd certainly be looking for down the line. Nothing too crazy in the near term just yet, except for what I promised I'd talk about all video here, and that is that lake effect snow that we're going to be seeing in the next 3 or more days. As of when I filmed this video, the biggest warnings that we have up are these lake effect snow warnings for the snow that's going to be coming through the next few, even beyond the next few days, in parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. Let's go ahead and list off those counties. Ashtabula County, Goga and Lake counties in northeast Ohio, Crawford, northern Erie, and southern Erie counties in Pennsylvania, and then we've got Wyoming, Chautauqua, as well as into Cattaraugus counties, southern Erie County too, there in New York. I may have missed one, I hope I didn't, but if I did, please let me know. You guys are under those alerts there in northeast Ohio, north central Pennsylvania, and at southwest New York. That's for the lake effect snow bands off Lake Erie. And then for now, the only other lake effect snow warning from when I'm filming this video is around Watertown, New York. According to this alert, this is for all county zones in the eastern Lake Ontario region, with the highest totals expected with elevation on the plateaus, but even lower elevations like Watertown are expected to get notable snow out of this lake effect event. Let's go ahead and take a look at the total snowfall being indicated by our European ensemble averages here. First of all, just through the next 24 to 36 hours after I'm filming this video, through our Saturday morning, notice Black Friday could be a big snow day here in northeast Ohio, north central Pennsylvania. There into the southwest parts of New York, those counties I listed, we could easily pick up 1 foot to 2 feet of snow as a result of the northwest to southeast flow off the lakes in the near term. But in terms of general snow off of all of these lakes, by the time we go through the early to the mid part of next week, let's go ahead and total that up. Playing things out through our Tuesday morning, notice every single lake somewhere off that southeast side of the lake, we are going to have a big set of snow totals. Some spots there in the pink turning over to the turquoise, Watertown, New York, very close to you. Many spots with 1 to 3 plus feet of snow on that immediate east side of Lake Ontario. Same will go in these lake effect snow warned areas of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. It'll be a little more on and off in terms of the snow in Ohio, but generally that entire region, many spots that I have circled here, at least 1 foot plus of snow, and many spots 2 to 3 feet. And the same goes there even off the east side of Lake Michigan. While it's more spotty for the foot plus areas, still many spots 8 to 12 inches, and the same will go on up there even coming off the southeast side of Lake Superior, the UP of Michigan. All these areas racking up on the first big lake effect snowfall event of the year. Go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service. I guarantee you they will have the most up-to-date information for your local area on this. But of course, that is it for this video, and I appreciate everybody who tuned in. No matter how long you watch this video, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't seen this reminder in the past, or if you just need to be reminded again, the awesome weather model maps that I use in my videos are from Weatherbell. You can check out a free trial from them for yourself. That link is in the description of this video. But that's it for this. I hope that you all hit that subscribe button if you want more consistent, accurate, and educational forecast content in the future. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I've got stuff to do with friends and family, but I hope to see you back in my next video in one of the next few days.
One nation weather.